Good evening, my brothers and my sisters, and grace and peace be unto you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It's a beautiful Tuesday, and we thank God for the privilege that He has given to us to come together this evening and to share in the study of God's Word. We thank God for His Word because His Word has given us access to Him and to understanding His will for our lives. I said on Sunday that something in the air, and I know that spring uh, um, is a while away from us, but soon it seems as though maybe the worst of winter is over. We don't know that, but we're closer. We're closer. Let's put it that way to springtime, because spring always comes in our lives, just like hope always is available, and the morning always comes, no matter what the day has brought. Uh, the morning will come, and so we're thankful to God that He's brought us thus far in this wonderful year of 2023, which keeps moving along. We're already in the month of February. This is Black History Month, as you know, a very significant month in the lives of African Americans and in American life. This is not just about African Americans, but it is about um, understanding the and being grateful for the contribution that African Americans have made to the building of this nation, to the greatness of this nation, and so we're grateful for Carter G. Woodson. I think that's a name that we should know. It's so easy now to Google everything. Um, we used to have to go to Encyclopedia Britannica or whatever encyclopedia you may have had a set in your home. We had a set growing up, but everyday information changes. But you can go right to your cell phone and find out all about Carter G. Woodson, who was a professor at Howard and a graduate of University of Chicago. And this is in the 30s, and also Harvard University, and thought that Negro children, as we would call it at that time, needed to know about their history, and started Negro History Week in the month of February to honor uh, the birthdays of Frederick Douglass, the freedom fighter, and Abraham Lincoln, the president of the United States and the great emancipator. And so, what began as a week of recognition turned into a month long celebration, and all over the country, all kinds of programs and activities and attention is drawn to the celebration of Black History Month. I am preaching a series of sermons during Black History Month, looking at the Negro National Anthem, and it is entitled "The Negro National Anthem Speaks." And I have been using lines from that great anthem and pairing those lines with passages of Scripture so that we could understand more clearly the role of religion and our faith and God in the inspiration behind the Negro National Anthem. Both Rosamond um, Johnson and his brother um, uh, were members of the an AME church, I believe, in Jacksonville. The mother was active in the church, and so I think whenever you look at some of the noted persons of our race, there's always a connection to the church somewhere. Paul Robeson's father was a Methodist minister, and by the way, this is the 125th anniversary of his birth, and there are celebrations planned for the month during the month of April. And many of you may know that just a block away from Monumental is a historic marker at a home on the corner of Walnut and 50th Street, where Paul Robeson spent the last years of his life living in that home with his sister. But anyway, it is a great month, and we certainly celebrate our history. Other announcements that I want to make: we want to remember Walk by Faith is still uh, um, a a very important um, uh, project in our midst as we seek to finish the work that we started. The larger projects being the repaving and refencing of our parking lot. We want to move along and get that done. We never want to start something that we don't finish, and so I'm urging us again that we would um, give according to your own ability and according to how the Lord has blessed you. Everything is going up, and I think we know that. Just go try to purchase a dozen eggs or anything, any groceries, any item, and already a proposal that we had, as I mentioned this before, for the fencing around the church uh, has gone up about $6,000 just from the beginning of the pandemic until this past year, and maybe even more by now. But so the longer we wait, the harder it's going to get, and of course, the more we will have to spend. So please be prayerful uh, in terms of please give and be prayerful, because I think it'll take prayer and, of course, our giving to make this possible. Let us remember Digging with Deeper on Sunday evenings at 7 o'clock. A very informative and engaging discussion on the morning sermon, and it is led, of course, by our own Dr. Q, who is also uh, associated with and is on the staff at the United Lutheran Seminary here in Philadelphia. That's every Sunday evening at 7, but also if you will um, uh, read Ministry Matters on that comes out every Monday, and Ministry Matters concerns issues of race and culture and politics and social events uh, that play upon our um, faith in terms of how do we think through these issues and what does our faith have to say. And I give my own comments on that and hope that you will go on my Facebook page or the church's Facebook page every Monday. And it's very important to share. I think that there's so many people who need to hear other voices than what they normally hear. And so it'd be good if you share the Ministry Matters with members of your family, your sons and your daughters, persons who may not go to church regularly, so that they can also think through these issues as well. That's every Monday morning. Also, as Sister Sania announced on Sunday, on this past Sunday, this coming Sunday, of course, Super Bowl Sunday, and Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl, as you know, and you may wear on Sunday your sports teams um, um, T-shirts and sweatshirts or whatever you have. I think that you would be wise to make that Eagles gear. Otherwise, your experience in worship next Sunday may not be as pleasant as it should be. But thought this would be a fun thing to do, and certainly the Eagles being in a Super Bowl has brought such excitement to our city, and we need these kind of moments. Now, these moments are not going to last necessarily, but they are moments that the whole city and those of us who love Philadelphia and love the city can enjoy. And I'll say, win or lose, um, the team has brought us to this point, and for that are grateful, and we share that as a congregation on this coming Sunday. Just a couple other things. Yes, on this coming Wednesday, that's tomorrow at 12 o'clock, I am preaching in the chapel of United Lutheran Seminary in celebration of Black History Month at 12 noon. The seminary is located at 7300 Germantown Avenue, 7300 Germantown Avenue. Those of you who would like to go, and I'm hoping that those who can will meet us there. Soon as you go through the gate into the campus, you bear right, and the chapel is right in front of you. You can't miss it. But certainly hope to see you on tomorrow at 12 o'clock. And then finally, of course, I want to again announce the death of one of our very fine and faithful members, Brother Johnny Thomas, who passed away and will be funeralized this coming Friday at 10 a.m. There will be a viewing. There will be a viewing from 9 to 10. From 9 to 10 is the viewing, and the service is at 10 o'clock. Brother Thomas was a faithful, longtime member, usher, and just a wonderful man. We want to be in prayer for Sister Ethel Thomas, his wife, and also the children of Brother Thomas as well. All right, we're ready to rock and roll, and we are dealing with the miracles, and specifically the miracles of Jesus. And I've already stated in terms of miracles that Jesus, and I think it's very important to understand this, that Jesus just didn't go around performing miracles just to perform them. Um, he wasn't a dog and pony show. He did not perform miracles just to entertain people. Um, and he didn't perform them to defend himself. Um, but he did perform miracles, and we are allowing our study to help us unfold the reasons why he chose to perform miracles and the impact of those miracles upon not only the people who benefited from the miracle, but from people who witnessed the miracle as well. But it's important to understand that he and that there were times when he refused to perform miracles. Sometimes it was a matter of people's lack of appreciation of who he was. Sometimes it was people's own unbelief, and that he chose. I'm not going to do this, and he would move on to other places where he felt that he could be more effective. I think the lesson for us as the church and as people of God is sometimes you just got to move on from people um, who don't want to get it and who are not concerned and not interested, because there are always people who are. But so Jesus was discriminate in his performance of miracles. I think that's the best way to say it. He was discriminate in his performance of miracles, um, and he didn't have to put himself on exhibit, and again entertain people. We're living in an entertainment driven culture. And we in the church also must be careful that we do not become an entertainment center where people come to be entertained by the preacher or be entertained by a choir, um, and leave empty and leave spiritually empty. The purpose of worship is not to entertain, but for us to have a collective and communal encounter with God. Now, having said that, and having defined miracles already, we talked about what miracles are and what miracles are not. Miracles are divine interventions of God. Miracles go against the natural order. Miracles um, defy logic and defy common sense. And I mean, that's difficult for uh, persons of intellect to understand. And one of the challenges today is living in a world of modernity, modern times, scientific age, when so many people dismiss religion as superstition and as something for people to believe in because they don't know any better. Um, but the truth of the matter is, you cannot explain miracles. You cannot put miracles in a test tube because miracles defy logic and defy common sense, and they really go against uh, intellectual and rational thought. See, but that's what makes them miracles. Miracles are believed by persons of faith because of where the miracle points to. And we talked before about miracles are signs pointing to something. Jesus never performed a miracle just to perform a miracle, but when he performed miracles, it was the miracle pointing to something else, pointing to something about him, who he was, what he had come to do, and so that people were able to see God at work through those miracles. The Bible talks about wonders and signs, and miracles involve wonder and mystery as well. So now, what we want to get into today is we want to list different types of miracles, different types of miracles. And so I have come up with one, two, three, four categories of miracles. Four categories of miracles, and that should launch us further into our study of miracles, types of miracles. So, if we had to reduce all of the miracles that Jesus performed, and of course, um, those miracles we encounter in the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John. If we looked at all of those miracles and just put them side by side or put them all out on a table, uh, we could put them in four different categories. First type of miracle is called the exorcism miracle. Exorcism miracle. And exorcism, uh, another form of the word is to exorcise, not exercise like you're doing kinesthetics and jumping jacks and all that, but exorcise. Uh, and so the miracles of exorcism um, refer to miracles where Jesus encounters. Well, before I even get that far, this is dating me and some of you as well. But years ago, um, there early 1970s, maybe 1973, there was a very popular movie that came out. You may remember, called The Exorcist. The Exorcist, And again, the spelling is Exorcism, Exorcism. The Exorcist probably came out before many of you who are listening were born. But I remember well. I never watched The Miracle because the movie, because I those kind of movies just didn't interest me. It was a it was a horror movie, and, and there was a lot of horror in it. It was about a teenage girl uh, who had an evil spirit in her, demon in her, and her mother approaches two Catholic priests to try to exorcise that demon from her, and that was the movie, and it was a big box office success. I think people are drawn to horror. Well, many, not me, but many are drawn to scary movies. They like to go to movies and scream. Uh, and if you want a lot of scream and a lot of horror, then you go back and find on TV The Exorcist and watch it. um, but but we so what I don't want us to do is misunderstand the word exorcism based on the movie, because the movie's portrayal of it is like it's some kind of magic, or that you can uh, pronounce a certain word, a certain formula, and the pronouncing of that formula would exorcise that demon. Something like abracadabra, and there's some other phrases that people use, magicians use, uh, and it's the words that bring about the exorcism, or the magic, or the magic trick, as it were. This is not magic when we're talking about what Jesus is doing, um, but in terms of exorcism, the definition of exorcism is to what? To cast out a demon. And demons were evil spirits that inhabited persons, that took over a person's personality, that were, quite frankly, uncontrollable. The person could not control the demon. The demon was more powerful than the person, see. Now, if you don't believe in demons, I suggest that we look around today and try to identify what are some of the demons that control people today. Now, I don't know, but there's a list. Alcohol could the misuse of alcohol could be a demon for some people. Gambling could be um, um, a demon for some people, and we got to be careful now, because this gambling, especially sports gambling, is consuming a lot of people, and especially young people, and especially young men who watch sports. And it's so easy to gamble now. You don't have to go somewhere in in the back room of a barber shop to to gamble. I mean, I was a kid growing up and sitting in the barber shop, and I was wondering what was going on in the back room. But anyway, um, I mean, you can gamble right here on your cell phone. Place a bet on the cell phone. We see commercials. Who's the guy always coming on every 2 minutes about gambling, um, placing bets, but that can become a demon. Uh, Sex can become an uncontrollable demon for some people. Their own ego can become uncontrollable. Uh, Intellect can become uncontrollable, so that a person uh, worships his or her mental ability. They may not have much common sense, but they worship the mind and what the mind can do. And so there are all kind of demons. Fear can be a demon. And these demons. And listen, when we look at the suicide rate today, and particularly among young people, how can we not say that demons are not real? How can we say, oh, demons belong to the age when Jesus was alive and the Bible talks about? That's all old stuff, and that stuff doesn't we're past that. And I would beg to differ. I think that demons are still with us, but that's the definition. A demon is this uncontrollable force that is also destructive. It is not a constructive force. It is not a healing force. It is a force of destruction. And so to exorcise a demon is to do what? To cast out that demon, uh, or to expel that demon. We talk about being expelled from school. Same thing, expulsion of the demon. So demons, again, are earthly powers or spirits who were contrary to and against the will of God. So being destructive, demons were opposed to God. God and demons are on the opposite sides, Demons uh, are against the will of God. Demons don't want us to do the will of God. Demons stood in God's way of having a relationship with God. And so, one of the reasons why Jesus deals with demons and also what's called evil spirits is because the evil spirits in people that he encountered were keeping them from having a relationship with God. And because God wants us to have a relationship with him and Jesus wants us to have a relationship with him, the demons are contrary to God's purposes and God's will. And so Jesus exorcises demons. Why? Because they were interfering with having this relationship with God. Um, um, and so what Jesus does in exorcising demons is that he removes the power of the demon. So the demon no longer has power over the person. Now, there's so many examples of this type of miracle, exorcism miracles. And as we move along, when we get to actually dissecting miracles, we're going to look at a couple that fit this category. But for now, we just need to understand that the purpose of the demon is to interrupt the relationship and communication with God and to destroy the person in the process. And so it is demon that takes hold and takes charge of a person's body, their behavior, and their spirit. See, and their spirit. Um, and so and what's interesting too, and what's ironic is that Jesus's enemies uh, accused him of being demon possessed. Can you imagine that? Uh, let's you know what? Let's go to a couple of scriptures as we move through some of this. John 7:20. John 7:20. I think I'm right. 17, 20. And just pick it up at verse 16, I think would be good. Jesus answered, my teachings, he's answering his detractors. He says, my teaching is not my own. It comes from him who sent me. If anyone chooses to do God's will, he will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. He who speaks on his own does so to gain honor for himself, but he who works for the honor of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There's nothing false about him. Uh, has not Moses given you the law, and yet not one of you keeps the law? Why are you trying to kill me? And this is a response. You are demon possessed. The crowd answers. Who's trying to kill you? I mean, so Jesus, who came to cast out demons, uh, is accused of being demon possessed. One of the one of the risks of being a Christian, and one of the risks of telling the truth, being a truth teller, is that people will accuse you of being something that you're not. They'll accuse you of being what they are. Um, and so they tried to flip it and say that Jesus was demon possessed, but again, this first um, type of miracle that Jesus performs is the ex, exorcism miracle, and again, there are many examples of that in the Gospels, which we will look at in time to come. Exorcism miracle is when Jesus encounters a person possessed by a demon or by forces beyond the person's control. See, if the person could control it, that force, it wouldn't be a demon, and Jesus wouldn't have to step in. But because that force controls the person, and that's again why Paul talks about uh, the love of Christ controls us. Um, it's the whole problem of our humanity is the is the question of who controls us. Are we controlled by sin? Are we controlled by our fleshly desires and wants? Are we controlled by a selfishness that says me first? And Paul says when we're in Christ, and we've talked about that this year, when we have the mind of Christ, then it is Christ who controls us, and the love of Christ that controls us. But the person who is demon possessed is under the control of that demon, therefore needs to be what? That demon needs to be, what's the word? Exorcised. Again, EXORCIZED, exorcised, in order for that person to return to normal. And as we shall see, there's all these people that Jesus encounters, um, and many of them had been kicked out of their communities because of the demon within them. I mean, what are you going to do? What is the community going to do with the demon possessed? But try to either lock them up or put them out of the community. And so many of them were outcasts. See, and it's interesting how when Jesus exorcises the demon, and that person is seen by the community doesn't know what to do because they're used to the person being sick and demon possessed, uh, and running around with the evil spirit. And now Jesus has exorcised the demon, and the person is sane and normal, just like them. And so, sometimes like they don't know what to do, um, and sometimes they're afraid. Uh, but it's just an interesting response. Um, how do people react when one among them is made whole? See, and oftentimes we don't rejoice when a person is made whole. Person is who's is clean now. You know, clean of drugs, clean of alcohol. Uh, Temptation is always there, but they've taken those steps and they're clean. And sometimes people around them are suspicious and don't know what to do with them. Uh, Everybody doesn't want you to be made whole, brothers and sisters. Um, so that's the first type, is the exorcism miracle. The exorcism miracle. Second type of miracle that Jesus performed is healing miracles. Healing miracles. Now, again, let's distinguish between exorcism miracles and healing miracles. Of course, the person whose demon is exorcised is healed, but it is the type of disease the person had that makes the difference. That person was possessed by an evil spirit, a demon. With healing miracles, Jesus responds to human need. For instance, in this category, a blind person receives sight. Not demons now, not evil forces, but person's blind. That's a healing miracle. The blind person receives sight. Paralyzed person receives healing. And I'm tempted just to throw out some examples now, and I really want to wait. But the paralytic at the pool, for instance. Then, well, let me go on. Lepers, the cleansing of lepers. Leprosy was a dreaded disease at that time, that affected the skin, and a person had sores, and their 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 flesh was disfigured, and very unsightly type of disease, left an odor and everything with the person, and I mean, you can imagine that the community didn't want a leper anywhere near it. So the leper had to live in leper colonies, groups of other lepers. They hung out together on the outskirts of the city. Just forgotten people, lepers, and they were considered unclean. See, you know, and Jesus, of course, cleanses the lepers. And we all familiar with the one instance where there were 10 lepers, and he heals all 10 and tells them to go show themselves to the priest. And while they're on the way, actually, is when they're cleansed. Of the 10, one goes back to give thanks for the cleansing, and Jesus says, "I thought I cleansed 10, and only one has returned." He was a Samaritan. Now that's the other interesting thing. Samaritans and Jews had nothing to do with each other. But if you were a leper, what difference did it make whether you were Jew or Samaritan? And so they were. There was a commonality in their disease. See, but again, that's another example of a healing miracle. Let's see, Jesus healed a man with a withered hand. Jesus healed a woman who was crippled. She was bent over and couldn't straighten up. Remember, and Jesus heals her. So that's a category where you would put these kinds of ailments. Giving sight to the blind, cleansing lepers, healing the paralyzed. That's the second category. So where Jesus is responding not to a person who's demon possessed, which would be an exorcism, an opportunity for exorcism, but he's healing persons who have physical need. Physical need. That's the second type. There's a third type of miracle, and we call them nature miracles. Nature, Nature, miracles. So we have exorcism miracles, and then we have healing miracles, and then third we have nature miracles. And that simply means that there's some danger from some natural phenomenon. All right. For instance, a storm, right? Um, winds, um, uh, Jesus, examples would be Jesus stilling the storm, right? Disciples in a boat, he's sleeping in the boat. There's a storm. They think they're going to die. They wake up Jesus and ask him, "Don't you care that whether or not we perish?" Jesus stills the storm. That's a natural phenomenon. So Jesus, and it's a different category of miracle because when Jesus does so, their response is, "What manner of man is this that even what the winds and the waves obey him?" Well, what's interesting is, why would they ask a question, "What manner of man is this?" if they already knew what manner? I mean, they had been with him long enough to see him perform these other miracles, these exorcisms and the healing miracles. But this 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 being able to to speak to nature is a different type, and that's why they're saying, like, "Wow, we knew he could do the other kind of miracles, but he can do this too." See, and so Jesus, is always something about Jesus that we don't know. He reveals himself through our circumstances and our um, encounters with him. So that's one type of nature miracle. Another type is feeding the multitudes. Um, when there was no food and the disciples want to send the people away, Jesus, in one instance, asked them, "What do they have?" And the disciples respond, here's a lad, here's a boy with 2 fish and 5 loaves. And we know Jesus takes them, blesses the 2 fish and 5 loaves, and feeds 5,000. And there are 2 or 3 or more examples of feeding miracles in the Gospels, where Jesus provides food. Jesus satisfies hunger. Now, uh, to know that is to connect that with the Old Testament, when Jesus, or rather when Moses and the Israelites are in the wilderness and they're hungry and they're thirsty. And what does Jesus do? Jesus provides manna for the 40 years that they were in the wilderness. They didn't have to, all they had to do was go out and collect it. You know, every morning it was there. God dropped it from the sky on the ground. So he fed them, see. And then when they were thirsty, he gave them water from the rock. And now here Jesus in the New Testament, uh, being the fulfillment, is also feeding the hungry. But again, why does he do this? And what is the meaning of it? Because in every instance, when he talks about feeding people with physical food, he always talks about feeding them with spiritual food. And he says, "I am the bread of life." That's because that's the most important thing. You can you can you can have the physical food and not have the bread of life. not have fulfillment in Jesus Christ. Um, I've come to give you not just the physical bread, because what man shall not live by bread alone, but I've come to give you spiritual bread and water. See, says the same thing to the woman at the well. She's talking about the water in Jacob's well. Jesus is talking about the water that I give you. If you drink it, you'll never thirst again. He's talking about about living water. And so these nature miracles, um, uh, stilling the storm, feeding the multitudes. And then, of course, at the end of the Gospels, especially Gospel of John, what is Jesus doing? Jesus is feeding the disciples again. You know, they're out fishing and not catching anything. And then Jesus tells them to throw the net on the other side, and they catch fish so many they couldn't, the nets began to break. And Jesus is on the seashore cooking breakfast, cooking fish. You know, I call it catfish and cornbread. I mean, what? And so he has a history of feeding. Uh, think about all the things that we do around meals in our homes and special holidays. How significant the meal is, because it's more than a meal. It's the fellowship. It's the sense of being one as a family. What is the Lord's Supper but a meal? Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper when they're already at the Passover meal in the upper room. And he says, now I've got another meal we're going to take. And he gives them bread and wine. So this is my body, uh, which is broken for you. This is my blood, which is shed for you. So, and finally, in terms of nature miracles, would be the miracle of turning water to wine. See, which was his very first miracle. And when we do actually begin to dissect the miracles, some of them, we definitely, there's over 35 miracles. We're not going to, by any means, go through all of them, but we're going to get samplings of each type. But turning water to wine is significant on several levels. Uh, the first being that it was the first miracle that Jesus performed. Of all the miracles listed, um, John says this is the first miracle that he performs when he begins his public ministry. Now, the last category. So you with me? We got exorcism miracles, right? And what's the next? Healing miracles. And then we have nature miracles. And then finally we have the miracle of raising people from the dead. Now, of all, this is the miracle of miracles, isn't it? And so there are 3 examples in the Gospels of Jesus raising someone from the dead. 3 examples of Jesus raising someone from the dead. The first is the raising of Jairus' daughter. The raising of Jairus' daughter. Very quickly, uh, this ruler official comes to Jesus. My daughter is sick. I want you to come to my house and heal her. See, I was originally it would have been a healing. Jesus said, I'll come to your house. On the way, this woman reaches out and touches his garment, and they have an encounter and a conversation. By the time they finish, it's too late, because Jairus's word comes from the home to Jairus that his daughter is dead. Jesus said, I'm going to your home anyway, right? And he puts everybody in the room except Peter, James, and John, and I think in the parents, and he raises the child from the dead. Now, what interesting is that um, what started out to be a healing miracle becomes a miracle of raising the dead. So, had Jesus gone straight to the home, presumably, he would have been there in time to heal the girl. Second incident is when Jesus heals, raises from the dead, rather, the son of the widow of Nain. Nain was a little town, and Jesus is passing by, I guess, and he sees this woman on the way to the cemetery behind the coffin, bearing her son, right? And, again, the culture at the time was one that was male dominated. It was a patriarchal society to the point where this woman, if she's already a widow, right? So she doesn't have a husband. Now she has no son. And so she is left totally vulnerable in a society um, that did not recognize her as a person. She may would have wound up in poverty if she wasn't already poor. No means of support, and look at all the things we have in place today for people. We got Social Security, we got retirement, we have I don't know what do you call some of the other benefits, unemployment. I mean, some we have safety nets today, and at that time they had nothing. And so, can you imagine the significance of Jesus raising her son from the dead? Because now there is uh, a male who is responsible for her and who perhaps can keep her out of poverty. So, again, here's a case where miracle is not just for miracle's sake, but the miracle not only raises the son, which, I'm sure he's glad about that, but what does that miracle do for the widow? See, we sometimes forget, uh, you know, what it meant for her, as well as what it meant for the son. And then the last one, but not least, and we know it well, was the raising of Lazarus, a man named Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus was the brother of Mary and Martha. They lived in a town called Bethany. They were dear friends of Jesus. Jesus used their home as his headquarters, ate meals there, taught there, hung out there. And I'm reminded of the old South and the old generation, where there were certain families that fed the preacher, and when the preacher would go to the town, or he was the pastor, and he was in the town, maybe a circuit preacher, which meant that he had more than one church, and he would go to this church first and third Sundays, and another church second and fourth Sundays, and there were people in the churches, families, that it was just their ministry to feed the preacher, and sometimes he stayed there. Um, this was kind of the sense we get with Jesus and this family, Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And of course, Lazarus gets sick, just like the Jairus's daughter. He gets sick. They send word to Jesus. Jesus takes his time. Presumably, had he gone straight to Lazarus, he would have healed him of whatever his sickness was. Instead, he remains where he was. 3 days, 4 days. Finally, he gets word that Lazarus has died. He goes back. Long story short, he goes back and has this conversation with Mary and Martha. Uh, Listen, had it not been for Lazarus's death, you think we would know the words? I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Jesus speaks those words, on that occasion. And of course, he raises Lazarus. And I'm not going to, I think we're going to talk about it more later, but there's a significance attached to Lazarus is raising Lazarus from the dead. But anyway, again, we have four, and that's in John chapter 11. By the way, if you want to look at it, we have, let's name them. Uh, one, two, three, four types of miracles that Jesus performed. Uh, and if I were testing you, I would ask you to describe each one, each type. Exorcism miracle, healing miracle, miracles of nature, and provisional. I guess we could use the word provisional miracle. He provides um, food, but nature miracles, and then finally miracles involving the raising of persons from the dead. Um, okay, it's our time is out. Next week, we are going to next Tuesday is Valentine's Day, and we are respectful of that, but we're still going to have, again, the marvel of technology is that um, if you can't watch it next Tuesday evening, you can watch it Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, whatever day next week, whenever you're able to do so. But we're going to go forward and address um, other issues concerning miracles, and once we finish that section, we're going to start looking at some of these types of miracles and dissecting them, uh, and really seeing how is the Lord speaking to us uh, through these miracles. What their signs pointing somewhere? Where are they pointing? And how do we understand God more clearly? These miracles are helping us to know God more clearly, and to so anyway, God bless you. Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Join us in worship. And again, we are doing a series of sermons on the Negro National Anthem speaks. Oh, I'm seeing some names here. I'm gonna start looking at this. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, we're gonna start. What was I saying? We're gonna start looking. Oh yeah, we're looking at the Negro National Anthem speaks. This wonderful anthem that was composed by a set of brothers, um, and how it has taken off to become an anthem that belongs to the world. I mean, um, and how does it speak to us over 100 years, 123 years after it was first composed? And so join us on Sunday, on the third Sunday. Um, we will celebrate Black History Month with a mini concert at the end of the morning service, similar to what we did with the mini Christmas concert back in December. And our choirs are working hard under Minister Taylor's direction to bring us some beautiful music, fitting for the celebration on the third Sunday following morning worship. And so God bless you. Just be reminded that listen, um, February is over. When February is over, spring will be arriving. We have a church anniversary to celebrate, which will be 197th on the fourth Sunday in March. We have Palm Sunday coming up, the first Sunday in April, Easter the second Sunday in April, and just look to God, blessing us as we continue to move through this year. Continue to be safe, um, and continue to pray for one another in these very difficult times. So many people are lonely, and just a call, a card, a text, letting them know that somebody cares about them. If you know somebody who's particularly vulnerable, say something and get help for them so that they will not continue to feel alone. We're living in times where people are very uh, stressful, and mentally drained, and we have to treat mental issues just like we would physical issues, not sweep them under the rug, but to deal with them and help our loved ones understand it's okay to call out for help, um, and it's okay to hurt, but you don't want to stay hurt, and you don't want to wallow in your hurt. You want to heal your hurt, and there are ways and people that can help us to do that. Anyway, God bless you all. Pray for me, and I'm going to pray for you until we meet again.